All right, welcome to the Confidence Formula webinar. We're going to talk about how to get 3 years of progress accomplished in 3 months of focused training for your player. First thing I want to show you today is what I've come to call the basketball confidence pyramid, kind of my map of the 7 stages of your player's journey. And really come to think of this as a cyclical thing, something that's going to repeat this cycle evolution as your player advances. So at least 3 different categories I would look at this happening. One is between really 2nd grade and 5th grade, where they're really just starting to learn basketball. They're going to go through a simplified evolution of each of these stages to where they're performing and they like it and they're seeking higher levels of competition. And then when they hit 6th, 7th, 8th grade, they're going to go through this again, learning a new skill set, higher level, faster pace of competition, and working their way up all the way to the top. And then again in high school, starting in 9th grade. And you could say a 4th one would be when they get to varsity and they're looking at playing college basketball. If they go to college, they would do another cycle going through these 7 stages. And so the first one is discovering problems through play. And I think this is something that is often missed as a need that players actually have, is to just have the open play exploration phase, which, a lot of coaching, unfortunately, is very much around control and scripted and isolated skills, where players really aren't experiencing the problems they're going to need to solve in a game. They're working on 5-on-0 or 5-on-5, pattern memorization plays, or they're working on isolated stationary skills, and they don't work on bridging that gap or experiencing, what actually goes on in a basketball game that's a problem in need of a solution. And so once they have some problems, then they're working on learning skills as solutions. If we had a player in the wild exploring playing basketball and just trying to figure out what basketball is in stage 1, they're going to instantly be looking for how to find a way to solve the problem they just experienced. And that's kind of the natural tendency, something that we try to embrace and follow that trend and give players the opportunity to experience problems and then show them skills as solutions, so it fits into the bigger context. 3rd stage is building skills downstream from decision. So kind of the first introduction of decision making is that when you're playing basketball and you experience a problem, it's usually a problem where you have at least 2 options that you have to figure out how to decide between. And, we could work on all kinds of different skills. Basketball is really the game of 1,000 skills. We can work on all kinds of things, but if we prioritize those skills based on decisions, then it becomes a lot clearer. So downstream just means that we've identified a decision that's going to be made probably frequently in a game, so we can get good at the 80% approach. Something that happens 80% of every game, we want to get good at that one decision and then build the skills that go with that decision. And then that makes, again, that skill fit into the context a lot better and allows the player to be motivated to practice and work on that and be able to translate it to actual game performance, as opposed to that kind of isolated skill model where there's no decisions being made and we're just given a skill like ball handling. We're doing it with no defense and no decisions, and then we're expected to apply that in the game, and it just often doesn't work. And then the 4th stage is creating certainty with skills that stick. And I like to point out that what I've seen a lot in this cycle is that players will kind of go through the first 3 stages, and then they'll want to jump to a new higher level of competition right there, feeling like, okay, I'm a pretty good player now. I like it. It's fun. But what they end up with is going back to stage 1, and they never get past stage 3 to really get skills that stick, and then higher level decision making, and then certainty that breeds confidence, and finally becoming an aggressive competitor is what we put at the top. Even though we talk mostly about confidence, that's really what parents identify, and they'll talk to us about what's lacking. They'll say it's their players lacking confidence, but if we ask them what they really want their player to be able to do, it's to be aggressively attack mode all the time when they're on the court. And so the fourth stage is certainty, creating skills that stick. So rather than just, briefly working on skills until they're good enough and I can use them most of the time or some of the time in a game, players that push that past that point and really develop certainty so that they know that they know that they know how that skill should feel and look, and how it fits into a game. And it's really sticky in that it's lasting, it's there every time they need it, they don't have to think about it. And then after that, we get to empowering decisions with conviction. So where we might have identified some of the decisions that need to be made, the player was working through them probably slowly with conscious effort, right? I'm thinking consciously in basketball is kind of the slowest thing I can do. What we want to do here is get them to where they have conviction of their decisions, like they know they're making the right choice, and it's simplified and it's quick and it's fluent, and it's almost like an automated program that's running in the subconscious part of their brain. They know how to make a decision and execute a skill without having to consciously think about it anymore. And then catalyzing certainty. So we have certainty in skills, right? The physical actions we're taking. We have conviction and certainty about the decisions we're making. That is really what leads to confidence. And you can't really skip those factors. If you're not sure what your feet are doing, you can't make quick decisions. And if you're really good with your footwork, but you can't make a quick decision, you're not going to have confidence. It's not going to show up in the way that we want it to and actually translate to performance. And then again, at the very top, we have assembling the aggressive competitor. So once they've built all these skills and decisions over time and they have confidence, that's where aggressive action happens. And again, you can't skip steps there. Like, parents want that aggressive competitor, but they might be aware of the lack of confidence, but they are not at all aware about the need for decision training. And they're probably not that aware of the lack of certainty that your player has with just the skills and how they're executing the physical techniques on the court. So again, this is kind of my map I've developed over time of how player transitions and evolves and progresses through 7 different stages. And again, that cycle factor is really important here, because they're probably not going to do this cycle only once and be the best player for the rest of their career at that level. They're going to get to this level in 5th grade, and then they're going to really start back with the beginner's mindset of discovering new problems in middle school that they didn't know existed, because the players are faster and the pace of play is faster and the athletes are bigger and faster and the coaching is more complex with higher expectations. And so learning new problems, learning skills as solutions, all that progresses again and again back to high school. When they hit that 9th grade freshman team tryout, they're going to experience the same kind of starting over beginner's mindset and progress through this a 3rd time as they advance through their high school years. So I want to go through kind of a list of questions we've developed to help identify kind of the ideal candidate for our program, and what we call the confidence formula, which is really designed for a 6th, 7th, 8th grade player that wants to play high school basketball and doesn't know how to get there. Like, they see the gap between where they are and where they want to be, and they're looking for help to get there. And so really what we've arrived at is, what we want to do is give them a high school varsity skill set and mindset before they get to their freshman tryout, so that freshman tryouts are not this stress-inducing anxiety period of, am I going to make the team or is my high school career over? Instead, it's, I'm walking in like I am one of the most skilled players on the court, and all this stuff is easy, and I'm able to think more at the coach's level of higher level strategy, because all this skill stuff is taken care of, and I'm at the level where I could be an aggressive competitor already. I just want to find the right team where my skill set's a good fit and I can play my best and have the most fun. So that's what we're really passionate about. So first question we like to ask, player that's coming to us for the first time, we're usually doing a phone consult call with a parent just like you, and we're asking them, what's your main motivation for seeking help for your player? And typically this is where the first opportunity for the word confidence to come up. Like they'll talk about lack of confidence. They'll talk about, recent experience where player really just didn't perform to their capability, right? They know how skilled they are, but they're not operating in games under pressure at all like what their skill set is capable of. And it can also include some specifics, right? It might be like they're trying to shoot 3-pointers, but they're not a very good shooter, or they're in a point guard role this season and they really need help with ball handling. So can kind of run the gamut of kind of abstract, higher level umbrella of confidence, or it could be like they just need to shoot free throws better. A lot of different things that are kind of the starting point. The key thing, the main motivation in your mind as a parent of why your player needs some help. Second question is, what has your basketball experience been like? What has your players' experience been so far? And again, this can kind of run the gamut, but typically we're looking for players that have played at least 2 years of competitive basketball, most likely with a rec or a travel type program. If they're in 6th or 7th grade, they've probably played 2, 3, 4 years even with their rec program, maybe 1 or 2 years with their travel team out of their town rec program. And kind of enough to establish like, I love basketball. And then that leads us to kind of what's missing for them to reach what they want to reach. If they have had a great experience so far and they're looking at the next level of competition and feel like they're not ready, they're missing some pieces, that's really where we come in to help them bridge that gap. The next question is, what are their biggest aspirations for playing basketball? So we, again, get a wide range from, I want to make my 7th grade team next year to I want to be an NBA player. And we try to connect with that highest aspiration, what I call the aspirational context. We're trying to connect with that player's highest dream and really have a conversation based on that. All right, based on an NBA player, like, this is kind of the mindset we need to have. This is the skill set we're going to work on building. This is kind of how you would operate, what your whole approach to practice would be. And we also work on, connecting the dots backwards. So, okay, we want to be an NBA player. We need to be a really good high level college player. We need to have played high school basketball at a level where college can recruit us. So we need to make our freshman team. And, if we're 7th grade, we need to make our 8th grade team and probably work toward being a starter level quality of talent on the 8th grade team, so that each of those steps is, a little bit more likely each year we move up a notch. But, connecting with that big dream, helps drive the conversation with the player and really connect to what they're trying to do. Next is the short-term goal they have for their next level of competition. So again, this can range from, my spring AAU or summer AAU team, my fall school team, or if it's in the fall, looking at my rec team or my travel team coming up. I played rec basketball as a 5th grader and I want to be on the 6th grade travel team and I don't feel like I'm ready yet. And then we ask, what's the biggest skill gap you see between where they are now and playing at that next level, right? So we're kind of boiling this down to look at what's missing. So again, you're a 5th grader going into 6th grade, looking at the travel team, like, parent can usually see like they're not very good at ball handling. They're pretty slow at decision making, or, maybe they've been in a role in the past where they didn't get to show what they were capable of, or didn't get to make decisions and get repetitions with getting better at having the ball in their hands and, being the man on the team where they're making a lot of decisions and a lot of attack actions. So you've usually got a pretty good perspective as a parent, like, a couple key pieces. Maybe it's a higher level umbrella concept, again, more abstract, like confidence or decision making, or it might be really concrete, like they need to get better at ball handling if they're going to be moving into the point guard role on the 6th grade travel team. What's the biggest mental obstacle preventing them from succeeding at that level? And again, this is where confidence usually comes up as one of the common things. Can also be anxiety or just stress when they're in games, they freeze up and they don't know what to do with the ball in their hands. They're passing up open shots, opportunities. They're passing the ball when they could attack themselves. And, maybe when they're just getting warmed up for a game, like they're experiencing really high levels of stress and anxiety about, performing on a team that, maybe they have some negative consequences from either the current coach or past coaches where, they were subbed out after every mistake, or they were, forced to run laps in practice because they missed a layup in a game. Like whatever history is behind there's usually a lot of causes of, a mental obstacle that's really preventing or inhibiting them from succeeding at the level that they think they should be capable of. The next question is danger. And this series of questions, we're going to ask 3 different questions, comes from a business coach named Dan Sullivan. He calls it the DOS question. So 3 questions of D is for danger, O is for opportunity, and S is for strength. And what we're asking here is, what's the worst case scenario for your player if they stay at their current level of performance, going into that next tryout? And typically, what will come up commonly is like, all right, worst case is they get cut from the team. Like, they're really skilled, they're capable, but their confidence is so low. Like they might be so stressed during tryouts that they can't perform. And, coach looks at them as not really that capable of a player. So they get cut from the team. And, we try to connect with the emotion behind that. Like, how does the player feel at that point? If your player is cut from the team that they really wanted to make as the next step to their bigger dream, the common term that'll come up is devastated. Like they are really torn up by the idea that they did not make the team that they felt they should have, because of their either the lack of confidence or the lack of skill, certainty, and decision making, and all the other factors underlying that umbrella of confidence. For whatever reason, they couldn't pull it together in the tryout, and so they missed their team, and they're really are devastated. And some parents will say, players pretty resilient, like they'll bounce back, they'll have a growth mindset about how to improve. But a lot of players would say, like, I'm just going to quit at this point. Like this was my best shot, and I wasn't ready. The flip side is the opportunity question. Well, what's the best case scenario if your player is able to achieve a level of performance to match their passion for basketball? What does that look like? And this will often bring up a string of thoughts from parents. Well, like, okay, this season they'd probably be able to make their team pretty easily, maybe be a starter on their team. Next season they could probably move up and be a bigger role. Maybe it's playing on a team that they wouldn't even try out for right now. Maybe it's just moving from bench player to starter on that team. Maybe it's playing a whole nother level up above where they would even look at as achievable right now. So it might be going into freshman, instead of just I made the freshman team and I'm a bench player, it's no, actually I'm capable now of not only playing at the JV team but probably starting on the JV team as a freshman. So it really opens up that mental opportunity of what would be possible if they actually pull all the pieces necessary together to have skill and to have knowledge and to have confidence, to match what they've really shown as their passion and motivation to get better at basketball. And the last question we like to ask is, what is their biggest strength? Kind of the defining characteristic across the spectrum of personality, mindset, or skill set, kind of whatever occurs to you as a parent. And we commonly get the terms from parents of they're really kind, they're a good person, they're a great teammate. The ones I really listen for are they're persistent, they are determined, they are motivated to practice on their own, and they're not going to give up very easily. So it's usually the same player that said in the danger category, like maybe they got cut from the team, was the biggest danger, but they're pretty resilient, they're going to bounce back, they're actually really determined and motivated by that kind of feedback where they see what they're missing and they can go after it. And with our whole approach of kind of bridging that gap, that's really an important factor that we're always listening for. So to wrap up here, I want to really walk you through what the confidence formula program is and how it works. And this has evolved over the last couple of years from a more complex, more time intensive off the court aspect to really streamline this to get as much accomplished as possible in a 3-month time frame. So 3 different large phases here. The first one, what we call explore, we're really continuing what we would have done with our evaluation as kind of our first contact with your player. We usually do the consult call and then an on-court eval, either 30-minute or 90-minute version, depending on where the level of player is and how much data we really want to capture about them. And so the first week of discovery is really continuing on that, capturing more data about where they are, asking them some questions, measuring their decision making and their decision speed, as well as some of the basics of shooting percentages, what we call our 25 shot test. And then the focus funnel, we're talking about how we use the tag teach method for instructions to really narrow both the coach and the player's focus into a single chunk of a skill at a time in order to master that. And then we also talk about the player priorities. So again, given their aspirational context of where they want to go and what we've measured so far by week 2, what are the top 3 priorities that are really going to take our focus to bring about an improvement over 12 weeks. And then week 3, we get into footwork foundation. So kind of the first week where we have really well set out curriculum, just putting down the bottom layer of the pyramid, getting sure and certainty of their footwork. And then we move into phase 2, really working on the shooting range, what we call our range amplifier, trying to improve the mechanical movement of the player's body to generate more power. And we use a technique without jumping at first to really challenge their body to drive more efficiency of power. And that allows us to move to deeper and deeper range. And then adding in the jump eventually really allows them to shoot a lot farther, 10 to 12 feet farther back from the basket than they normally are used to. And then we get into situational skill systems, talking about different game situations that are, again, the most common is kind of our approach, high frequency, getting good at the things that happen the most. So we talk about fast break scenarios with the ball in your hands, ahead of the ball, behind the ball, where do you run to, how do you operate, how do you react to a teammate. We talk about the order of operations if the ball's in your hands coming down the court, with the first instinct to drive, and then if you can't drive, to pass and cut and get moving, and if you can't drive or pass, to use a dribble handoff to initiate action, kind of all the things you can do yourself without either waiting on a teammate or being directed by a coach. You can come down in attack mode and get something started. And then we talk about screening and what we call a rule of opposites, creating a opportunity to score as both the cutter and the screener by moving in opposite directions right after the point of the screen. The scorer's formula is week 6, where we talk about the efficiency of scoring, what's called points per shot value, where we're going into some deep basketball math about how to calculate your scoring efficiency and really give you a different perspective on your shooting performance, so that you can actually look at a game where you shot 9 3-point shots, is my favorite example, and you missed 6 of them, but on average you actually scored 1 point per shot attempted. And that's a really good gold standard to have. If you look at even NBA teams, they're maybe 1.1 if they're an NBA playoff team, making a deep run in the end of the postseason. And, the teams that missed the playoffs were at 0.9. So it's a small threshold, but as an individual player, understanding that really is how we guide players on shot selection. So they're looking to take and make more efficient shots, as well as improving their shooting technique. And then the third phase, where we really start to expand into team concepts and how to create advantages and multiply advantages, how to develop the decision making to a really high level of refinement so that they're making quick decisions, they're making accurate decisions, and they are taking our framework for decision making and starting to apply it on their own to situations outside of what we're actually training. And then the final stage we call the decisive competitor, kind of aligning with that top of the pyramid we showed earlier of the aggressive competitor. What we do throughout this course, in addition to a weekly one-on-one session, we have a weekly group competition night. So we're pulling in players from either the current program or even alumni from the program to play mostly 2-on-2 and 3-on-3, but apply the one-on-one concepts into live offense and defense and be able to stop and tweak and correct and improve and really connect the dots. Because one of the biggest factors we found with the one-on-one training is that it's too big of a gap between 1-on-1 and 5-on-5. We really need some 2-on-2, 3-on-3, sometimes 4-on-4 play in order to fit those pieces inside that bigger picture context again. And so overall, throughout the 12 weeks, we call it the 4 touch point system, where we have the preview video. Well, they'll get an explanation and a demonstration of what we're going to talk about, why we're going to do it that way, and what it looks like on a demo. And then they'll do their one-on-one session, they'll do their group session on the court, and then we wrap up each week with a quiz where they're getting pinged with 3 to 5 questions just to get them to recall again, what we talk about, why do we do it that way, what was it called, and get that to stick. So what I tend to call the coat of paint approach, where we're putting that coat of paint, that layer down every week, and we're getting them to make it stick by reviewing, recalling, and applying it in multiple different ways, so that when we get to week 2 and we get to week 3 after that, all of those past concepts and past skills we worked on are integrated into that, and they become part of a bigger and bigger pyramid that we're building all the way up to that aggressive competitor stage. So I hope this was helpful for you, walking you through our thought process and our questions to get you thinking about where your player's at and what they need and why. The first step that we always start with, if you're interested in one-on-one training, is to take our player scorecard. We actually have created what we call a confidence index, which is just a way to rate somewhat objectively, have your player rate themselves on how confident they are in a specific skill set. So we have 9 different skill areas, and we have a range of 1 through 4 options with a description. And they're able to go and click through, which description they feel like actually applies to them the best. And then once that's done, we'll reach out to you with a consult call, kind of talk through where your player's at and what you're seeing from them, and then eventually get them on the court to do our evaluation, where we can measure more specifically, where they're at, what they need, and give them and you a free sample of what it looks like to work with us, and make sure it's a good fit from both player and parent and the coach's perspective as being a fit with our program.